You guys have been asking for low top smugs, and they're here. Come in the classic colors: black, dark brown, tan, green, and obviously blood cord. All the same stuff of the sneakers built like boots that smugs are known for. Sneakers made using good shit. This time in low top. Check them out below.
In World War I, there's an estimated 75,000 casualties caused by trench foot in just the British troops, and over 250,000 estimated across all the armies during the war. And much of which was caused by the conditions in the trenches that were always wet, with not just water, not just rain, it was blood, urine, excrement, which made a pretty obvious breeding ground for bacteria and infection. And in World War I, keep in mind, they were essentially wearing dress shoes to war, which caused a lot of blisters because how tight and small they were. They had no ability to keep any kind of fluids out, which was a huge recipe for disaster. So what did they do to try to mitigate that issue? Well, soldiers were sent with a pair of puttees or gaiters or canvas gaiters, which had their own obvious issues, difficult to put on. You could easily over tighten them, they were expensive, and they really didn't help keep anything out of the boots because it wasn't covering the boots, it was just wrapping the legs. So at the end of World War I, a lot of countries, including the US, saw a need for a better solution, which would lead to the famous M43 boot with a double buckle strap at the top. But what did France make for World War II? Well, as we saw in the cut in half video we just recently did, they basically made a World War I boot for World War II. And they were made really well, but due to the occupation of France, they were unable to innovate and really push in the same way the United States did with their innovation. And even after World War II, the French military was involved in the first Indochina War, where they were still using basically those World War I boots. And all the shortcomings of that boot were even more clear when they got put into a lot hotter, a lot harsher environment. So in the 50s, the French military went to work on a boot that would withstand any environment and take the best of everything they learned from all the boots they borrowed in World War II to make the ultimate war boot. And in 1952, the MLE 52 boot was born. But what is this boot? Well, the brand or the company that made it was B. Masson. The style is the 52 Ranger or the MLE 52 or all these French words I'm not going to try to butcher. This particular pair was dated to 1960. They weigh 2 pounds 3 ounces, and these were made in France. So now we're going to cut this boot in half, run it through our test to really figure out, why did they add buckles and straps to military boots? Did it actually work? Why did they stop making these double buckle boots? Should they bring them back, and why haven't they brought them back? So first, why did they invent the double buckle boot? Well, like I said, most people before World War II were sent with puttees or gaiters, and these were needed because it helped protect from dirt, debris, insects, leeches. It added ankle support, reduced the risk of trench foot. It added a little insulation, wind protection. It was pretty economical, but at the same time, it was really time consuming to put on to wrap that. You could easily over wrap your legs. It didn't really prevent stuff getting to the inside. It retained a lot of water because a lot of times they're wool or cotton canvas. They're super vulnerable to damage compared to leather. So the reason they invented the double buckle boot was they wanted all the pros and none of the cons of puttees and gaiters, and to simplify the construction by integrating essentially a gaiter into the boot itself. And the way that the soldiers would use these was, first they would tie their boots just like normal, because this is essentially like a 6-inch boot, and the laces stop at that junction where the collar begins. And then they would, before they buckled down the collar, they would tuck and fold their pants in and then strap it around and tighten it down. And this was significantly faster, a lot easier. It allowed the soldiers to have 2 points of independent adjustment. So if the boot was too tight down here, they didn't have to undo everything. If they wanted a little bit more breathing room up here, they didn't have to untie the whole thing. You could adjust each piece exactly how you wanted, which was significantly easier than untying your boots and rewrapping your entire leg. And leather is significantly more durable. This leather is 2.5 millimeters thick, so up to work boot standards today. The lining that's backing it is about 1 to 1.5 millimeters thick. And so you end up with almost 4 millimeters around your calf, cinching all that down. And you'll notice this is a lot like the other military boots in World War II, where it was a rough out. So that abrasion resistant furry side where they put dub and wax on to lay it flat is on the outside because it's more abrasion resistant, and that smooth grain pattern is flipped to the inside, so it doesn't wear out your feet, give you blisters because it's so smooth. It allows you to put the boots on easier. And that wasn't the only thing they upgraded from the previous boots that they took inspiration from, because you remember these World War II boots were almost completely flat. And so with the French boot, after World War II, they're like, lugs need to be on military boots, clearly. And so they put on this really aggressive rubber luggy outsole. It's sewn all the way through. There's even these cool little brass screws screwing it in together. But did it actually work for France? Well, they were adopted in the later stages of the first Indochina War, and unfortunately, they fared very poorly in that tropical climate. And that's because they're super heavy and hot, they absorbed water, they became prone to rot, and the thread would rot away. Soldiers would start fungus growing on the outside and the inside of their boots, and it got even worse during the monsoon season. But this was more of a testing ground for the boot, and the real test would be just a couple years later in 1954 at the start of the Algerian War. And during this long, brutal conflict, they were worn by paratroopers, the French Foreign Legion, the mobile units, and the regular infantry. And these French troops in Algeria were operating across extreme ranges of environments, from arid deserts to rocky plateaus to dense pine forests and steep mountains and shell slides, urban warfare. The French troops faced everything from sweltering heat and deserts to freezing nights. So then how did these perform in that climate? Well, let's cut these in half and I'll show you all the inside stuff and why some soldiers absolutely loved them and some hated them with a passion.
Which Rose Anvil wallet is right for you? If you want something that does it all, holds all your cards and your cash, something you can toss in a bag or backpack and that still comfortably fits in the pocket, the Togo and the Clayton wallet are right for you. Let's look at wallet thickness and number of pockets. Here's how the Togo and Clayton stack up. The Togo's 6 pockets at 11.2 millimeters thick and the Clayton 7, with 1 large back pocket for cash, at 14 millimeters make these our thickest wallets with plenty of room. Internal folding on the Clayton, as well as hand stitching and full grain leather on both, make these extra durable. Get yours at roseanvil.com. Up next, the biggest Big Daddy wallet.
All right, we got them cut in half, and if you want to see more double buckle boot action, go check out the US made M42, the Bush War boot that we recently covered that we might be working on a reproduction with Jim Green, and all the other historical boot videos. And if you don't mind pushing that subscribe button, like this video, share it, because it's really cool to be able to immortalize some of these historical boots that are just slowly rotting away and tell the story of the individual soldier through the footwear they actually wore. So thank you guys for your support. And now let's see what's inside. So now we can really see what's inside of this boot. And keep in mind, at the time, most other countries were starting to design and innovate boots specifically for hot climates by using canvas boots, direct injected construction. But if you look at the inside of these look a lot more like the inside of the M42 boots designed for World War II. But that's exactly why some soldiers absolutely love these boots. Yes, they were hot, yes, they're heavy, but these things are built like tanks. 5 millimeters of leather insole, 4 millimeters of a toe stiffener and heel counter, 4 or 5 millimeters of leather shank, leather filler instead of cork, brass screws, brass nails, and steel nails going all the way through the boot. And now we can see it is truly a Goodyear welt construction. So now looking at these 3 different double buckle boots that we've cut apart, which is the better boot? Well, looking at them, I would say this is the best of the bunch, which is surprising because I thought for sure when we were starting this video that it was like, oh, it's another like French boot, it's like way behind the times. But that's part of what makes this boot so special. When everyone else was innovating in a different direction, they made an absolute tank of a boot. So then why would they retire that? Why would they stop making boots with a double buckle? Well, France didn't really, because the next iteration of the boot still had the double buckle design, but I wonder if it's a lot closer to the style construction of the more Palladiums, the jungle boot. And so if you want to see that, let me know. If this video does well, I'd love to cut one of those in half. So should they bring them back? Well, I honestly think people have been sleeping on this old school technology, because that ability to independently adjust and tuck in your pants and retie your boots, and that heavy advantage of being able to keep everything out of your boot, it's honestly kind of shocking that you don't see more of a double buckle boot in still modern boots today. Because soldiers still today tuck their pants into their boots. So why don't they just use a double buckle boot? I have no idea. It wasn't until we started working on a reproduction of this boot, until we went out and started field testing them, that I realized that these still have a lot of utility and function even today in 2025. So this boot ended up being one of the highest quality boots that we've seen. It's arguably the highest quality double buckle boot ever made. They took all the innovation from all the boots that they borrowed during World War II, applied it to one single boot to make this one of the toughest and most versatile and function-based boots that we've ever cut apart. So let me know what you guys think. What other boots and historical boots you want us to cut in half. So thank you guys for your support. See ya. pooties, and pooties. Pooties and gators. I hate saying that word, pooties.